It is a mimer from Tufshin Lamed Test. You ever learned it ever a little bit? Maybe? Yes. Really good. So, Chodesh. So there's some cool nakudas. There's some cool nakudas from the mimer that I have here. Got a bunch of microphones. You can hear me. There's some interesting points for the mimer that I realized this year that it was not so simple. It looks like a pretty simple mimer, but it's actually not so simple. Actually, there's some points that are pretty nuanced that are not so. I mean, the basic mimer we probably know, but it says Chodesh Zelachem. This month will be for you, the beginning of the months, the head of the months, the beginning of view of the heads of for the months of the year. That at the beginning, everyone used to call Tishrei the head of the year, and the head of the months of the year, and months used to be connected to years. Whenever you counted a year, you also started over with the months. But nowadays, after the parsha that we just read, after the beginning of Yetzias Mitzrayim, which was right before Marcus Bechoros, right before the firstborn got struck, right then Nisan became first of all the first of the months, which means, and the first of the months of the year, which means that the concept of counting months became separate from counting years. We used to count years, and then the beginning of a year is the beginning of a month. Pretty simple. But no, after Yetzias Mitzrayim, we count months and we count years separately. So what's the point of that? So really it says that the Rebbe Rashab says that what does it mean to count the year? Counting a year is counting the movement of the sun. Every day the sun is like the same. The sun comes up, looks the same. The sun itself looks the same. The position of the sun is a little different, but the sun itself is the same every day, which represents the counting nature. Hear this? Yeah. Counting. The sun is counting nature because Tishrei is the day that the world was created, and the world implies nature. So
today is the day the world was created in Machshava.
In thought, correct. Stay tuned for that. Hopefully, we'll get there. So the world is created in Tishrei. That means nature is created in Tishrei. So counting the years is counting based on the natural order because the sun comes up all the time. But the movement of the moon, which is the months, counting the months, the moon is different every day. Not only is the position of the moon different, but every day the actual moon looks different. And that's the idea of something that's a little different and something that's new, which is the concept of a miracle. I mean, nature happens all the time. The same miracle happens differently. So it says really. So what does that? Okay. So what does that mean? So in the beginning, both of these things, nature happening the same, and miracles happening differently, which is sometimes a miracle happens, not all the time. Both of these were rooted in the energy of Tishrei. The beginning of Tishrei is the head of the year, and the head of the months included the life force of everything. Included within the life force of everything. So both miracles and nature came from Tishrei. But nowadays.
Oh, why? Pick up the bag. It's all wet.
Kids these days. Gotta get some new law and order.
We love you too.
Speaking of miracles, So originally Tishrei was the head. It included within it the life force of nature and miracles. But nowadays, after the Exodus from Egypt, Nisan includes within it the energy for all miracles, while Tishrei still remains the head for the head of nature. Yeah,
but the way Hashem leads the world with nature.
Exactly. But the thing is that there's really different kinds of months that we're talking about. We say that Nisan is the head of the months, and months meaning a new thing in nature. There's different things that we're saying. There's two things. It says two things in the verse. It says Nisan should be the beginning, the head of the months, and the beginning of the months of the year. The concept of counting months separately from the year was a new thing that never happened before. Before that, in Tishrei, we would count the months together with the year, which means that even though Tishrei was the source of nature and miracles, but the miracles that would happen rooted in the source of Tishrei, which is the months of the year, the months that are connected with the counting of the year, those miracles would happen in a way that was still connected to the world, which means that, at first I thought that it means that it's talking about miracles that happen in nature, miracles that happen without breaking the laws of nature. But no, I realize that's actually not what it's saying, which is a little bit of a kind of nuanced point. So it means that also. It means, first of all, it includes miracles that operate within nature, miracles that cause something to happen miraculously without breaking nature, but it also includes within it all of the miracles of the plague, the first non-plagues of Egypt, up until Marcus Bechoros, which were all Each one of them was a supernatural miracle. But it says the difference is that those miracles were supernatural, but they were still in Egypt, meaning like they were not powerful enough to bring the Jewish people out of Egypt. And it says that's because even in their original source of the spiritual energy, they were still within the Egypt of Kedusha.
Had efforts, a connection to nature.
The connection to nature, even though they were supernatural, each one was totally supernatural. Like those are the definition of supernatural. But each one was supernatural, but they still had a connection to nature and a connection to the world. So they're still included within the months of the year, within the miracles that are related to the order of the year. But only in the months of Nisan, when we have the parsha, this month shall be for you, which was right before the Makos Bechoros, which is what took them out of Egypt, followed by Kriyas Yamsuf, which took them out of Egypt completely. So because these miracles took them out of Egypt, it means that the source of these miracles was itself out of Egypt. It was out of a spiritual Egypt. And because it was out of the spiritual Egypt, that's why I was able to take them out of Egypt. And that's the concept of when we have months, which is months not counted by the year, which is miracles that are totally beyond relationship to the worlds. But nowadays it says Nisan is the head of the end of the Mimer is, the questions are a little bit confused, but it says nowadays Nisan is the head not only of these extra miracles, but even the other miracles that happen now are now rooted in Nisan, even though originally they were in Tishrei. And even the natural order is still rooted in Tishrei. Maybe we could have had from the beginning, maybe Hashem could have just set up that maybe from the beginning of creation, Nisan could have been the beginning of the months in the beginning. Why did Hashem wait all the way to the Exodus from Egypt to make Nisan the head of the month? I said this is related to the first Rashi in the Torah, which says really the Torah should have began with the Parsha, this month shall be for you, the beginning of the months. Because why? But what's the question really? The people think the question is, Rashi is saying, why does it begin with creation, telling us a story? The Torah is not a storybook. But no, it says in the note, it's obvious. This is kind of a new thing I learned this year. It's obvious. Yeah. I mean, there's a few new things, but this is one of the new things. It's obvious that every story is for a purpose, implying like Rashi does not ask questions about every story in the Torah. There's many stories that happen even after the Exodus that Rashi never even mentions. Why does it mention the story? Because Rashi is implying that anyone reading it would obviously know that there's a lesson and an actual purpose to the story. So Rashi doesn't need to ask questions on why does it say a story. What the question is that the whole purpose of the Torah is to have revelations that are beyond the world entirely, which is the day of the months, not connected to the years. The Torah is the intellect of Hashem directly, which is supposed to give us revelations of the law, etc., which is totally beyond the world. But the creation of the worlds was created with only a tzimtzum, with only a little contraction, tiny little ray of light, which is seemingly not such a big deal. So why would the Torah need to go out of its way to tell us about this tzimtzum, to tell us about this concealment of the world, when the whole point of the Torah should just be open revelations? And it says really answer, and then it says when it says the answer.
The question of the Rashi.
Exactly. I kind of like learned it. I kind of like hopped it this year. I didn't really get it before. So saying the answer in order to give the power of his actions to his people, that if the nations of the world would say you guys are thieves because you conquered the land of the seven nations, we will say back to them that the entire world belongs to Hashem and he created it and he gave it to whoever is befitting in his eyes. With his will he gave it to them, and with the same will he took it from them and gave it to us. So wait a second. If we're saying that the Torah should really begin with the infinite revelations, which only happens when Nisan is counted and the counting of months is separated from the counting of years, which represents totally miracles way beyond anything. And now we're saying, the only reason why we're including the tzimtzum, why we're including the contraction and the limitations of the world is just in order to answer the nations. That would maybe imply that really the whole beginning of the Torah is really not supposed to be Torah. It's really like the Torah is really infinite revelations, and really this other stuff that happens is like other stuff, chas v'shalom, that's not really Torah, which is only there. Yeah, it's like a technicality. It's not really Torah. Torah only begins here, but all the that's not written. But no, chas v'shalom, because obviously all the Torah is still the Torah. So why did the Torah begin with the tzimtzum, with the concealment of Hashem, when the purpose of the Torah is revelation? Why do we need to begin with concealment? Why can't we just have revelation first in the first place? And it says that really it says Hashem wanted to have a dwelling place, a dwelling place in the lower realms, which means that Hashem does not want to impose himself to be here. Hashem doesn't want to force himself into the world. Hashem wants people to make the dwelling for him based on their own understanding and their own initiative, and based on things that make sense to them. So the fact that we are able to answer the nations in such a way that even the nations of the world are able to understand how the whole world belongs to Hashem, and therefore the revelations that happen in the Eretz Yisroel happen once the nations themselves realize it, then that's the main point of Diur B'Tachtonim. And so this is related to the point of the idea of this is related to the whole point of the Simsum in general. The Simsum in general, it says that at the beginning, it says there's just the infinite revelations of the infinite light, such that nothing was able to exist. And it's because nothing was able to exist, then the revelation that happened, even though there was a revelation, but the revelation was not able to be in the world at all, because the world was not able to exist. But once Hashem made the Simsum, once Hashem made the concealment, and then he made the possibility of the world existing and the world itself, then even though it was created with the Simsum, but once we already exist, then we are able to bring down the revelation through the Torah and the mitzvahs. And we're not only able to bring back the initial revelation, but we're even able to create new revelations through the Torah and the mitzvahs that never even existed before the world was created. And that's only possible through the concealment of Simsum. So too when it comes to the land of Yisroel. So the Hashem gave it to the Canaanites first, in order to, which is like the darkness that comes before the light. In order to, when we gave it to the Canaanites, creating like this darkness, like this void, then gave it to us later, then it's like, we're able to transform the darkness into light from within the dark, from within what makes sense to the nations itself. And then through that, not only can we get the same revelation, but we can even get greater revelations that would have been possible if it was only imposed from above. So too, when I said that when the Torah begins with the creation of the world, which is just a tiny little ray of light of concealment, it's not that it's not Torah, but it says the point of the Torah is to go down into physical things, to elevate the physical things. The point of the Torah is to go down into the physical objects in order to elevate the objects, so we could use them to make a dwelling place for Hashem. Just like when it comes to all the objects in the world, like the fill in Hashem, the power of the Torah goes in the physical objects, so we can use them to make a dwelling place for Hashem and bring the revelation. So too, when the Torah begins with the creation, the Torah itself is going into creation. When the Torah beginning with the creation of the world, it means that the Torah itself is going through the Simsum in order to elevate the world from within the world. So that's the idea of Nisan. It says, so Tishrei. So the world itself began with Tishrei, with the concealment, basically. But the purpose of the world, the thought that Hashem had to create the world, was on the 25th of Adar, which is ultimately Nisan. So that the purpose of the world is to have the revelations of Nisan. Meaning, like, even originally, Hashem did intend for Nisan to be the head of the months, meaning did intend for these infinite revelations. But the first step is to have Tishrei as the actual head for everything. And then as we continue through the story of the Torah and through the world in general, then we go from below to above, in a way that makes sense to creation itself, until finally, after we have the Exodus from Egypt, and then Nisan becomes the head, we realize that all along it was meant to have the revelations. And then once we have the revelations now, then it's like from within the Tishrei. We started with Tishrei so we could start from within the darkness. Then once we reach the light, then it's like we get to a greater light than impossible. That's the idea.